They took the portraits down before breakfast, quietly, as if the walls themselves had changed their mind. A square of pale plaster showed where her mother used to be. Elizabeth noticed because the room felt wrong, not loud wrong, not broken, just thinner. She stood in her shift, bare feet cold on the stone, staring at the empty space where a woman had once watched her. The shape remained. The color did not. A ghost without the courtesy of being called one. No one explained it. They were already moving things. Gloves folded, cushions turned, a green ribbon cut from a sleeve and pocketed like contraband. No one looked at the wall for long, certainly not at the child. Elizabeth tilted her head. "Where is my mother?" A pause, not a long one. Not enough to be rude, just enough to be noticed. A maid smoothed a table that did not need smoothing. "Her grace is occupied, my lady." Occupied? Elizabeth did not know that word, but she knew the tone. It was the tone used when a cup broke and no one wanted to say whose hand had slipped. She waited. "Where is my mother?" Another answer from another mouth. "Resting. Resting now. Occupied before." The words did not match. Elizabeth frowned, small and serious, as if language had betrayed her personally. She looked to the one person who did not fidget, the nurse. The nurse knelt, slow, deliberate, bringing herself down to the child's height. Her hands were warm, always warm. They smelled faintly of linen and milk, and something steadier than the rest of the room. "Your mother," the nurse said carefully, "was away for a while." Away. This word Elizabeth knew. Away meant return, away meant later. She accepted it for now. The household shifted its weight, not all at once, that would have been honest. Instead, it happened in pieces. A falcon disappeared from a wall. A cushion was turned so the embroidery faced inward. A gown was taken away and did not come back. The green that had once lived here began to thin, like grass under frost. Red arrived, not boldly, not declared. It seeped in, thread by thread, sash by sash, until the room no longer remembered what it had looked like before. Elizabeth noticed the hands. Hands that had once lifted her quickly now hesitated, as if she had become something delicate or dangerous. Hands that once pointed now tucked themselves away. Hands that closed doors softly, always softly, as if noise might summon something best left unsaid. Where was my mother? Busy, my lady. Where was my mother? Resting. Where was my mother? Away. The answers shifted. The rhythm did not. The nurse carried the lie now. She had to. Too many mouths spoiled a secret, and this was a kingdom built on keeping its own counsel. "Your mother was away," she repeated, smoothing Elizabeth's hair, fingers careful, almost reverent. "You must be patient." Patient. Another word the child did not yet own. But she learned the feeling of it. It sat in her chest like a held breath. The bells began before anyone said why. Distant, muffled by walls and distance and intent. They rolled across the morning like something heavy being dragged. Elizabeth heard them while playing with a scrap of ribbon that had once belonged to something finer. She looked up, listening. The sound did not belong to her world. It belonged to outside, to something larger. Why were the bells ringing? No answer, only a glance, quick, sharp, between two women who should not have needed to look at each other to understand. The nurse stilled. Just for a moment, her hand tightened around the child's sleeve. Not enough to hurt, enough to anchor. She knew the hour, she knew the place, she knew the exact moment a blade met a neck she had once seen bowed only for prayer and power. But here there was a child with a ribbon and a question. They were marking the day, the nurse said. It was not a lie. It was not the truth. Elizabeth nodded because the tone was firm and tone was law in a child's world. But she listened to the bells until they stopped. And when they stopped, something else stopped too. She could not name it. She felt it anyway. The question returned. It always did. Children were persistent, where adults were careful. Where was my mother? This time, there was weight behind it. Not confusion, not curiosity, insistence. The nurse felt it like a hand at her throat. She could have said it. She could have said the word, dead. One word, clean, final, dangerous. The child would have repeated it. Of course she would have. Children repeated everything. That was how they learned. That was how they betrayed. A court listened for less. The nurse saw it, clear as daylight, the echo of that word leaving this small mouth and travelling down corridors lined with ears. And then, not just the dead lost, the living too. The nurse swallowed. "Your mother," she said, voice steady as she could make it, "was gone from court." It was a careful sentence, built like a bridge over a pit. Elizabeth studied her. Children knew when something was being built in front of them. Gone? Yes. Will she come back? The nurse almost broke there. Almost. Her mouth opened. Truth rose, hot, sharp, ready to cut through everything. It would have been easier. It would have been kinder. It would have been over. But kindness had a cost in places like this, and the child could not pay it. Not for a long time, the nurse said instead. The lie held. Barely. A new presence entered without introduction. Doors opened for her. Voices adjusted. Servants moved with a different kind of attention, quicker, sharper, more eager to please. Elizabeth saw the colour first, not green, never green, red, rich, certain, unquestioned. The child watched from the side of a room that had once felt like hers. It did not now. She did not understand replacement. She understood displacement. Her nurse's hand rested on her shoulder, firm, guiding. This was how you stood. This was how you watched. This was how you survived. No one said those words. They were taught all the same. Where was my mother? The question was softer now, worn at the edges. The nurse knelt again, as she had before, as she would always do when the world became too large for the child standing in it. Your mother was away, she said. The first lie. The strongest one? The one that could live. Elizabeth nodded. She did not ask again. Not because she understood, because she had learned something else. Questions changed nothing. Later alone, she tried to remember her. Not the word, the face. She closed her eyes, small hands gripping the edge of a wooden chest, fingers pressing into the grain as if it might hold the answer. There had been hair, dark. There had been eyes, looking. There had been a voice, saying. She could not finish it. The edges blurred, details slid. The face refused to stay still. Memory, it turned out, needed feeding, and no one there would feed it. Elizabeth opened her eyes. The room was as it was now, not as it had been. The wall remained empty. The nurse watched from the doorway, said nothing, because the child was quiet, and that was the moment it settled. Not the blade, not the bells, not the whispers behind closed doors. This, the silence, the question gone, the answer accepted, the mother fading, and in her place. A girl who learned, very quickly, how to live in a world that survived by forgetting.